Gigabyte have refreshed their Aorus 15 gaming laptop with the new i7-9750H CPU and 240Hz screen. But how well does this new model perform in games with the RTX 2070 graphics? I've benchmarked 18 different games at all setting levels to show you how well it runs, and compared it against some other laptops to see how it stacks up. Just quickly, before we jump into the benchmark results, I'll cover off the specs in my unit. I've got the highest spec version here, which has an Intel i7-9750H CPU with NVIDIA RTX 2070 graphics and 16GB of memory running in dual channel. The Aorus 15 is available in different configurations. You can check updated prices for different models in the description. I was running Windows 10 with the latest NVIDIA drivers provided by Gigabyte, which are a little behind the latest from NVIDIA. Just as a reminder, we're only looking at gaming performance here. If you're new to the channel, get subscribed for the upcoming full review which covers everything. We'll start off with the results from all 18 games at all setting levels, then compare to some other laptops afterwards. For these tests, I ran the fan maxed out. And when you do this, the laptop will actually overclock the graphics and boost the CPU TDP to improve performance. So these are the settings I've tested with. Battlefield 5 was tested in campaign mode and not in multiplayer mode, as it's easy to consistently reproduce the test run. The purple bars show the results with ray tracing disabled, while the green bars show RTX on. The RTX results weren't great at ultra and high settings, though it was usable at high. For a game like this, I'd want higher frame rate though. And RTX off at ultra settings both looks and runs better than with RTX on at low settings. Apex Legends was tested with either all settings at maximum or all settings at the lowest possible values, as it doesn't have predefined setting presets. The results in this game were a little lower than I expected based on the specs, but it's running well enough even maxed out, while minimum settings boosted FPS by 30%. Far Cry New Dawn was tested with the built-in benchmark. Not too much to say here, above 60 FPS at ultra settings is good. Oh, and it was coming out ahead of the 2080 Max-Q in the Razer Blade I recently reviewed at every setting level. Far Cry 5 was also tested with the built-in benchmark, and the results were ahead of the newer Far Cry New Dawn just covered, and we'll see how this one compares to other laptops soon. Fortnite was tested with the replay feature, and while I have to regularly refresh the replay due to updates, I test in the same area. This game doesn't need powerful hardware to run, so even with epic settings, we're seeing 120 FPS averages, with low settings actually able to make good use of the 240Hz display. Overwatch is another well-optimized game and was tested in the practice range, as other players, bots, and even different maps in actual gameplay affect the frame rate, and this allows for consistent testing. At low and medium, the 300 FPS frame cap is hit, while epic settings still played extremely well. Shadow of the Tomb Raider was tested with the built-in benchmark. The results were pretty good, just a couple of FPS behind the 2080 Max-Q in the Razer Blade I recently tested, and actually ahead at lower settings, possibly due to the higher clocked 9750H CPU. Metro Exodus was tested using the built-in benchmark. Most parts of the game perform a fair bit better than this, so don't take these results as a good indication of what to expect throughout the entire game. It's more of a worst case, but does let you perform the same test to compare against. CSGO was tested using the Euletical FPS benchmark, and like always, high frame rates were coming out of this test. This is the sort of game the 240Hz screen would be most useful for if you're playing competitively. Rainbow Six Siege was tested with the built-in benchmark, and in general is a game I've found to benefit from NVIDIA's new Turing architecture. I've only recently started using a 100% render scale here, as the built-in presets use 50% by default, so the results can't be compared against most of my previous tests. I'll also note this was another test where low settings were getting frame rates that would be well matched with the 240Hz screen. PUBG was tested using the replay feature, and even at ultra settings, almost 100 FPS was possible in this test, with lower settings getting us closer to 130 FPS. Which seems to be about as well as this game performs on laptop hardware. I don't think I've seen it much above 140 FPS in my test run. Assassin's Creed Odyssey was tested with the built-in benchmark, and I was seeing some fairly high frame rates at the lower setting levels when compared to other laptops I've tested. This is my first 9750H machine, and this does seem to be a CPU heavy game, so it may be helping a bit there. I'll have a whole video comparing the 8750H to 9750H though, so make sure you're subscribed for that one. Dota 2 was tested playing in the middle lane with an average amount of action going on, and it was running very smoothly without any problems at all. At maximum settings, it was still performing very well at 150 FPS, with closer to 200 at lower settings also possible. Watch Dogs 2 is a resource-intensive game, though with a solid 30 FPS it plays just fine to me, so hitting the 60 FPS sweet spot at Ultra on this laptop was quite a nice result. Ghost Recon is another demanding game and was tested using the built-in benchmark. Unless you've got a top-of-the-line laptop, 60 FPS at Ultra in this test is basically not possible, though decent frame rates were achievable with lower settings. The Witcher 3 was running well with Hairworks disabled, and it played perfectly fine for me even with Ultra settings. 90 FPS with 60 for the 1% low works well. And while you can get higher FPS at lower settings, I don't think this game benefits much from it and would prefer the higher visual quality with high settings. Strange Brigade was tested with the built-in benchmark using Vulkan, and was also running quite well, with low settings actually able to smash out enough frames to put the 240Hz screen to use. Shadow of War was tested with the built-in benchmark, and is another game that I found to benefit from Nvidia's new Turing architecture. Even Ultra settings were only just behind 100 FPS. We needed very high to hit that. Let's also take a look at how this config of the Aorus 15 compares with other laptops to see how it stacks up. Use these results as a rough guide only, as they were tested at different times with different drivers. In Battlefield 5, I've tested Ultra settings and I've got the Aorus 15 up the top in red, and it was doing quite well, only coming in behind the 90W 2080 Max-Q laptops I've tested. It's worth remembering this is my first 9750H laptop test, so all the others have the 8750H. Here are the results from Far Cry 5 with Ultra settings and the built-in benchmark, and the Aorus was doing well here, coming in at second place, only behind the Asus GX701, which is ahead of the other 2080 Max-Q laptops due to G-Sync. These are the results from Shadow of the Tomb Raider with the built-in benchmark at highest settings, and in this test, the Aorus is a little ahead of the Alienware M17, which isn't too surprising as I had some thermal throttling on the graphics in that one. This is the first time I've tested a laptop with RTX 2070 graphics, and for the most part, it seems to be slotting in about where I expected, between the 2070 Max-Q and 2080 Max-Q. Though it does of course depend on the game. In some it was beating the 2080 Max-Q machines. Overall, we're seeing pretty good performance. And we'll take a look at thermals and everything else in future videos. It's worth noting that there was no Nvidia Optimus here. The display is connected straight to the Nvidia graphics, meaning we should be seeing higher performance when compared to laptops that need to send the signal via the Intel graphics first. This does however come at the expense of battery life. It's a trade-off. I've got a video linked in the description covering this topic further if you're after more information. So how do you guys think the new Aorus 15 gaming laptop did in these games? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and get subscribed so you don't miss the upcoming full review.